The stage was set under the dazzling lights of CNN's primetime special, where millions of Americans tuned in, expecting another heated partisan exchange. On one side of the table sat Charlie Kirk, the brash 30-year-old founder of Turning Point USA, a man who had built his reputation as the young, aggressive face of conservatism, often praised for his rapid-fire delivery and his supposed mastery of facts over feelings. He entered the studio confident, smirking as he waved to supporters, telling the moderator moments before cameras rolled that dismantling his opponent would be easy. But across from him sat Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas, a first-term Democrat with the steady poise of a Harvard-trained attorney, a reputation for sharp questioning in congressional hearings, and a folder on the table that seemed ordinary, but would soon rewrite the course of the evening. As the cameras began to roll, Kirk wasted no time launching into his opening statement, framing Democrats as reckless spenders and indoctrinators of America's youth. His words carried the practiced rhythm of a man who had delivered these lines 100 times before, and the audience responded with applause. Crockett, however, remained calm, acknowledging his points without theatrics and simply reminding viewers that truth requires receipts. Her voice was measured, her gaze steady, and her hand rested lightly on the folder in front of her. What no one yet realized was that inside were months of painstakingly gathered evidence, transcripts, financial records, internal communications, pieces of a puzzle that, when revealed, would devastate Kirk's credibility. For the first half hour, Kirk dominated the tempo. He interrupted, he waved statistics, he mocked Democratic spending. At first glance, casual viewers might have believed he was winning. But then, with deliberate precision, Crockett shifted the energy. When Kirk claimed inflation was at its highest point in American history, she gently corrected him with historical data, reminding viewers of past spikes in 1917 and 1980. The correction landed softly but firmly, signaling a shift. Then she opened the folder. What followed was not the usual back and forth of talking points, but a forensic cross-examination, a methodical dismantling of Kirk's public persona. Crockett laid out transcripts where Kirk had cited wildly different numbers on border crossings: 10 million in one speech, 5 million on a podcast, 15 million at a rally, all contradicted by official data from Customs and Border Protection, showing far fewer encounters. She slid documents across the table, forcing him to reconcile the inconsistencies. She played audio clips of his own voice, quoting himself against himself. The audience murmured. Kirk scoffed, waved his hands, called the details technical distinctions, but Crockett remained unflinching. Facts always matter, she said, this time locking eyes not with Kirk, but with the camera, speaking to the millions watching at home. And then came the bombshells. Crockett revealed that her team had surveyed hundreds of universities and found that Turning Point USA's claim of over 3,000 active campus chapters was grossly inflated. Fewer than 500 actually existed. She produced emails instructing staff to maintain the appearance of active chapters for donor purposes and recycle event photos when interest waned. Screens behind the candidates lit up with internal communications, confirming the deception. Kirk paled. The interruptions stopped. The audience gasped. But Crockett wasn't finished. She displayed spreadsheets, showing that while donors were told the majority of Turning Point's budget went to educational programming, internal records revealed that enormous sums were instead funneled into executive compensation and luxury travel, including private jet flights totaling millions. And then came perhaps the most damning revelation: internal strategy documents instructing campus recruiters to identify emotionally vulnerable students, those struggling academically, socially, or personally, and target them for recruitment during moments of crisis. The words themselves appeared on the screen for all to see. The audience erupted in shock. Crockett's voice grew firmer, carrying moral weight. You've built a career fighting what you call indoctrination, yet your organization preys on vulnerable young people. How do you reconcile that? For the first time in his public career, Charlie Kirk had no answer. His voice cracked. His rebuttals rang hollow, and silence filled the studio, where once his confidence had dominated. Social media exploded in real time. Hashtags like Josh Crockett Receipts and Kosh Kirk Exposed trended across platforms within minutes. Clips of the revelations spread like wildfire. By the time the debate ended, the story had already grown beyond the studio. In the hours that followed, major Turning Point donors froze funding. Conservative allies began to distance themselves. Students at campuses nationwide demanded answers, with some chapters dissolving overnight. Within days, news outlets across the spectrum, from progressive watchdogs to Fox News itself, covered the scandal. Analysts questioned the discrepancies between Turning Point's tax filings and the documents Crockett unveiled. The fallout was swift, dramatic, and unrelenting. For Kirk, the empire he had spent a decade constructing collapsed in mere weeks. Speaking engagements were cancelled, board members resigned, and an IRS investigation was launched into his organization's finances. For Crockett, the night marked a turning point in her career. She insisted her actions were not about partisan victory, but about accountability, integrity, and honesty in public life. Polls showed even many conservatives respected her methodical approach. Analysts began to speculate about her future in national politics. In the end, the debate that began as just another cable news spectacle became something far more consequential. A live, televised reckoning that dismantled not just one man's credibility, but an entire organization's narrative. It was a stark reminder that in a political era defined by spin, performance, and spectacle, there remains an unshakable power in hard evidence and undeniable truth. And on that night, under the studio lights, Jasmine Crockett proved that preparation, precision, and integrity could still shake the foundations of power and alter the course of history.